Woohoo! Welcome everybody to the Thursday night special third interview of today. This is
Yeah.
about to go down. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for those who have hopped on the interviews earlier today, for everybody who's here today, and most importantly, thank you to Tayo Rockson. It is such an honor, y'all. I have to tell you, having this human being on our show is really fantastic. And I'm already calling it a show, which is really interesting.
Good.
I don't know why I just said that. But I met Tayo last year at some point, and I remember immediately after hearing his message and his mission, I just resonated so deeply with his group, which is called Use Your Difference to Make a Difference.
Right.
UYD. And it's called UYD Management. He's the founder, CEO of UYD Management. He's a 3 times TEDx speaker. He has an MBA. He's got all the letters behind his name, but at his heart, he's like a masterful storyteller. And he is just an incredible human being. And I'm honored to call him a mentor and a friend. And I'm just really grateful that you took the time out of your very, very busy schedule to be here with us in the Spark community. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. And you give me way too many accolades, too much praise. But I definitely hope to live up to that. But you're someone that's equally a champion for justice, and I admire that. And when you asked me if I could speak, the only answer I could say was yes. I just had to figure out the time. But I'm glad I'm here.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. So to bring you up to speed, and while people are going to be hopping on, since we started like 30 seconds early, just to give a little context for folks who are new to the group, because we had a lot of people join today. The purpose of this week is to really ignite another fire in all of us, right? The assumption is that if you're in this group, that you're a courageous leader already. The assumption is that if you're in this group, you care deeply about community, you care deeply about inclusion, diversity, in a way that's beyond the buzz phrase. It's like a part of your being is what you do, right? We have educators, parents, founders, global travelers. We have mothers, fathers, sisters, aunties. We have leaders in this space who have continuously spoke up and done things for what's right? It started with this card game. The original community that's in here, I started this Facebook group for people who were on the Kickstarter as a way to show thank you, to give just like a gesture of gratitude back in 2016, just so I could have a space to be like, hey, guess what? We're almost there. And now look where we're at. It's just amazing when you have a movement for something that people feel deeply called to stand up around. And that is why I'm so honored to be holding this space tonight.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so then this whole idea sparked last week. And I was sharing more about my why, because more members were coming into the group, and somebody said, this is really powerful. We should do more of this. I started doing spotlight speakers on Thursdays. And so just because one person said, why don't we do a group event, like a challenge or something? And then the wheels started turning, and here we are. And so we're on day 4, and it's been all about supporting people to find like, again, the assumption is that you're all courageous. And so now it's like, what does it mean for me to take it to the next level? Right. Yeah. And so the first day was like, why would I take it to the next level? The first day was all about the why, being really grounded in like why this is a moral imperative for you. And the second day was about your core values, like what's going to guide you and filter your decisions when things get hard. And the third day was about what is your real vision? Like, where are you trying to head? Why is it worth it? And today is like, all right, so what's really going to be required to really take this to the next level and go in a direction that really feels aligned with where you're at? And the assumption is that everybody's unique spark and unique courageous gift is different. And that's what makes this community so great. So that's just bringing you up to speed.
No, I love it. I mean, it sounds like you had a great curriculum, because your core values is definitely necessary. That's what you stand on. That's what feeds your courage. That's what you say. I'm staying there, and this is my conviction, right? So, and I love how it builds up to the crescendo, I guess, which is what, tomorrow?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So tomorrow is when the rubber hits the road and people actually have to take that first step and
Love
start
it.
sharing it with the people that they care about. And so I'll just say this on a logistical front, if you're here live, definitely this is a conversation. Every one of these is meant to be a dialogue. So
Dialogue is also good.
It's been a long day. So yes, so definitely engage. If you have questions, if it sparks something for you, comment in the box. If you're watching the replay, write team replay and still engage so we can continue to follow up with your questions and comments. But other than that, let's get this party started.
Let's do it.
Sound good?
Do it.
All right. So the first question for you, sir, is what is your definition of courage and where did it come from?
My definition of courage is doing the right thing at all times. And it's as simple as that, because for me, I spent the first 9 years of my life in a military dictatorship, right? Hey, Tanya. I spent the first 9 years of my life in and out of a military dictatorship. And a lot of times what I observed as a kid was, people choosing, favors because, you were part of this political party, you were part of this ethnic group, and they'd be like, screw what I'm in government for. I'm getting a short-term gain and I'm not people. And I observed that a lot, and I saw the negative effect of, people around me. I saw people get killed, people have to flee based on exile, and people just basically facing negative effects. And I look at the world today, and there are a lot of people who choose comfort over courage because they don't want to have short-term pain. But feeds into, we just had Martin Luther King Day, and one of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther King is, "Anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And I think that is that's exactly what courageous leadership means. It means,
oh no, we lost him. Let's see what happened. Sorry, y'all, hang tight. Let's see. One second. We were on a roll too. Let's see what, hopefully he'll be back any second now. Thank you for your patience, good people. As I get connected with him, let's see what your reactions are so far. Choosing courage over comfort. And what reactions do you have to that? It's okay, he'll come back. That's right. And we get to have a dialogue now. I know he'll come back. Sometimes Be Live has some quirks that are so funny. Ask him to refresh. All right. Good. Oh, he's coming. But yeah, interact. If Tayo says anything that is that you have a connection to, or if you find that there's a golden nugget, feel free to repeat it and type it in the box. I'm so excited you're here, Chizzy. Yay, you're gonna be on live tomorrow. Yeah, let's see who else. There were a couple other people who said, boom, that he's refreshing as we speak. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Chizzy. For sure. And staying silent these days is such a luxury. I'm reminded of that every day, of how much silence is a real luxury, and how we have every moment of every day, we have a choice to say something, to stand up, to speak up, to ask a question. And I'm sorry, I'm multitasking. I'm double checking something real quick, y'all. He's coming back. Yay, Aaron, welcome. We're super excited to have you here, and all of you. We're dealing with a minor technical difficulty at the moment, but Tayo will be back very shortly. We're in the middle of a conversation about what courageous leadership means to you and to him. And so feel free to type in the comment box what courageous leadership means to you. And perhaps even think about, like, where did that definition come from as we wait patiently for our friend Tayo to come back. Oh, he's coming back. I can feel it. It's happening. It's happening. Are you there, Tayo? Oh, goodness. Goodness gracious. We got this. So here's what it's making him restart. What a bummer. All right, he'll be here shortly. You may notice that I'm in a different location now. I had 2 other interviews earlier today, and now in between my last interview and this interview, I drove from Austin to Houston, Texas. And so now I'm sitting here in Homewood Suites in Houston, Texas, and I'm going to be facilitating a workshop for a group of leaders in the Spring Branch School District tomorrow, which is really exciting. So you may notice a few shifts. But for you all, tell me, what is a word that captures how your day has been so far? How you doing as we're waiting? I think he's coming. I can see something going on. There we go. Oh, he's back like magic.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what happened. It just cracked out. All right. I'm so sorry. Where were we?
It's all good. This is what we do. So your definition of courageous leadership, choosing courage over comfort, and you were starting to share where it came from.
Right.
And yeah, just the impact that's had on you.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, did I share the story about the military dictatorship and what I learned? So for me, the quote, a threat, injustice, with Martin Luther King quote for me, why that stands out for me is because I've been, I study a lot of Martin Luther King and the leaders of the time, Martin Luther King, the late Nelson Mandela. And a lot of times you notice if you really dive into the careers, there were many, many moments where they had forks into their life. They had to choose a decision. Martin Luther King took a stand against Vietnam. Martin Luther King's stance was with nonviolence, even though they were pelting him and his people. Martin Luther King was willing to go to jail all those times. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in jail for his belief. And when he came back, he took the unpopular decision not to be retaliatory. Instead, he chose reconciliation, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to choose to forgive, and let's see if we can get our people back, because he saw the bigger picture. And that to me is courage, because a lot of times the easiest thing to do is often not the right thing to do. I mean, it's easy to want to return hate with hate. It's easy to want to return violence with violence. But if you're able to step back and listen to that inner voice that actually informs your opinion and tell you, okay, I need to do what I feel like I need to do, that to me is courage. And that's so yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Are you getting a little echo?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm like, all right. So thank you for sharing that. And there's a connection from that story, perhaps from your upbringing to then becoming an entrepreneur and taking a stand, and you yourself choosing courage over comfort on your entrepreneurial journey. I'm curious to hear if you have a story where you were at that fork in the road, and perhaps a little bit more about how UYD became UYD.
So you've heard this story multiple times, but I'm sure your audience hasn't.
Right.
And I'll probably add another story to this, but the first one is the one that you know a lot. So I came to America when I was 17, came here for school. I'm a Nigerian, so I came here, with big ambitions. I wanted to change the world. I'm going to be this leader that's going to basically stand against injustice everywhere. And I was gung-ho about that. I volunteered for every nonprofit, that I could be. I led 2 marketing. I was the head of marketing for 2 nonprofits while in college. And so by the time I was ready to graduate, I thought I was solid. I was like, yep, I have all these experience, even though I'm young, and applied to jobs, multiple jobs, about 85. And they all said no. I mean, it was an interesting feeling to go from this high where you felt like you had this, a lot of these experiences, and then everyone just kept saying no and no, and it's for various reasons. You're not a citizen. We don't sponsor visas. You're too young. This is not something we feel like you're qualified for. And so I had a bunch of those things, and then I just noticed my morale just continued to go down. It went down to the point where I started to reach out to people that had hired me before for internships, and I was like, "Hey, look, man, I need to stay in the country. Just, can you sponsor me for something?" And so we reached an agreement where one of the companies said, "All right, we actually need a social media person, so we could possibly do it." And so I entered the H-1B visa lottery system, and luckily they accepted me. I got the job. It wasn't social media. It was actually sales. They told me, "You're actually doing a sales job, and your quota is $10,000 a month." And so I was like, wow, I wasn't trained for this. I didn't even understand this. But so all of a sudden I went from this high to going down to this place where I found myself lost in a world I never imagined for myself. In my mind, I tried 85 times, and the universe basically said no, so whatever. And so I stayed there for about a year and a half, and then that was until one fateful day, August 22, 2012. Never forget this. I was driving to work. I hit the accelerator pedal and got onto the highway where you're supposed to, where that lane merges into the highway. And as soon as I was on my lane, it wasn't about 2-3 minutes where this car just cuts my lane to half. The car had lost control, and it was spinning out of the way, and my car was the first point of contact, and I was trying to get out of getting hit, so I swerved as well. But in the process, I smashed into the left guardrail, and then I smashed into the right guardrail, boom, and I hit one car, two cars, boom, back to the left guardrail, and then my car is perpendicular. It's about to flip over the bridge. And you're 22 years old. I'm 22 years old. And I'm saying to myself, the only one thing that comes to mind is, have you done everything you said you were going to do? Have you done everything you said you were going to do? And obviously I couldn't answer that in the affirmative. So I don't know. Adrenaline kicked in. These things happen so quickly. Adrenaline kicked in. I slammed the brakes. Somehow managed to get out of the car, but my car was completely totaled. There was debris everywhere. 2 cars were hit. If you were standing right there with me, you'd have seen a car zoom past me. And I knew at that moment I was going to eventually quit my job. And the reason why that was a very brave moment for me is because I had painted this picture. All right, as a foreigner in this country, you have one or two options. After you graduate, you have to get a job to sponsor you to stay illegally. And here I was saying, I'm going to leave that job, and I'm going to figure out what my dream was. And I'm going to go to New York City without actually understanding whether I fully can, create this dream. My parents thought I was crazy. People thought I was insane, but I couldn't believe it. I'd faced my mortality, and I didn't have anything to show for it. And so I had to really just step down on my visa status and just go and take a leap of faith. And that's what led down to me to move to New York City. And then as I moved to New York City, you move. Thank you, Leah. I know you definitely understand this moment. And as I moved to New York City, it was like, it was back to square one. I'm back to school, my MBA, and I'm sort of figuring things out again, refiguring things out, interviewing people. New York City became my campus, essentially. Run to school at night, New York City became my campus, and I would be like, hey, this is me. This is my story. I sort of grew up everywhere. I want to change the world. I want to connect people across cultures. Turned it into a podcast. I started writing all about all the lessons I learned from that. And then I started to focus on the people that identified a few people that sort of felt the same. And I just continued focusing value, providing value for them. And then gradually I was able to build a career out of that. But that's how, UYD and User Difference came out of that. But it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the courage to quit my job, which you don't normally do in Nigeria, and leave the city to an unknown city, and then just become comfortable with the unknown. And the unknown was, you don't know what's going to happen. You could get kicked out of the country. You could not get a job. You probably might not get hired. Whatever. I just felt that's what I needed to do. So that was my courage story.
Right. Whew. I know I've heard it a couple of times, but every time I have to hold my heart with Leah, and I believe that's a very, very deeply parallel story to something that Leah's experienced. And it is, you question everything in your life around what impact, who am I? What am I here to do? And your next steps to a lot of people are so scary to take a leap of faith and to jump into so much unknown. I mean, what sustains you? How do you have the internal reserve to hold that much uncertainty? I'm just genuinely curious.
No, I mean, it's interesting because that's a great question because, I had given up at a point, right? I had tried 85 times to get a job and I was like, man, this is not working. I'm just going to take a job that gives me an opportunity. But, those were some of the most miserable years of my life, the 1.5 to 2 years that it was. And for some reason, whenever I got that question prompted in my mind as I was facing my death, it just reawoken something in me. I was like, I knew what I wanted to do since I was 10 years old. I didn't know what it would look like. I just knew I wanted to make this impact. And that to me was more worth it. And I just felt like, the feeling of leaving this world without actually making an impact or contributing positively, that's what keeps me sustained. So every day that I, that comes where it's bad or good, I'm like always asking myself, what have you done to contribute to the world today? How is anybody's life been better because you're in it? And so whenever it was, my New York experience was interesting because I got fired twice in the span of 3 years. I remember being broke. I remember going to office spaces to in my suit to pretend I had meetings so I could eat cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that was me. And I stayed through. And it was because of these moments. And I kept thinking, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And that's what it's about. Love you, Leah. I've heard so much about you, Leah. But that's what it is. I mean, I love the fact that you started the challenge with all those values. Those are the things you get reminded by.
Right.
Because if you look at the world, Hitler, all these people, bad people, nothing stops them from being vocal.
Right.
So we as people that want to change the world have to have that same can do, to that fervor to be committed to what it is that we want to do. I mean, that's when bad gets sustained. When bad people are the only ones talking and good people just stand idle.
Yes.
So yeah.
Put a heart emoji or your favorite symbol if you agree, and if you also have had a waking up moment where you realize, like, if not now, then when? If not who? If not me, then
not me, then who? Yeah, if not me, then yeah. You got it.
It's a John Lewis quote. Who said that originally?
A bunch of people. I mean, so the first time I heard it, ironically, it was from Emma Watson from the He for She. So she might have taken it from John Watson. Who is also Emma Watson, John Watson, but
it's one of my favorites. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of those quotes that gets, I don't know, but yeah, I've always loved that because that's the thing. If you have to ask yourself that question. A lot of us say we want to do stuff, but do you have the courage to do it?
Right. Because it's just a choice away. To get started on it is just one choice away. And
it is.
A big focus of today is about, all right, so you have these clear. Most people in here have a clear why. Most people are pretty, in general, like they have, from what I've heard from folks is like, I know the impact I want to make. I am in this for humanity. I have a very clear, particular reason why I'm doing the thing that I'm doing. Right. And it is deeply personal. And so then we go into the values, and now it's like, all right, so how do I make tomorrow different from today so that I'm starting to take incremental steps toward that bigger mission 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. But something that I think you are an expert in, and you can tell me if you agree, but I think you're one of the most emotionally intelligent leaders that especially male leaders, to be honest. There's always gender dynamics, but you're the most emotionally intelligent male leader that I have had the privilege of working with. And I work with a lot of folks in the racial equity scene and diversity scene. You have tremendous self-awareness, Tayo. And so I wonder what you might say. A lot of times people want to take action and go out and do. And I'm wondering, I think there's a balance between holding up the mirror and doing some self-reflection, and then also taking steps out, and going out the window and taking steps outward. So if you had to think about what might you offer to folks who are thinking about their next steps and how they might pave the path for their kind of next chapter of being the most courageous leader they can be?
Absolutely. So for self-awareness, you ask yourself these questions: who am I? Who do I want to be? And, what do I need to develop in order to be that person? I always say you got to set a goal that you need to grow into that person, grow into the person that can achieve that goal. And for me at that moment with the car accident, who I was someone that only spoke about doing good things in the world, but wasn't acting, right? And who I wanted to be was someone of action. And who I needed to be was to change my environment and commit to that action, regardless of the circumstances. That's how you know who you want to be. And so when you strip yourself of all those things and you ask yourself what makes you happy, what do you stand for, what things cause you to rant, what things cause you to go on raves, that's how you get to the core essence of who you are. Otherwise, you become suspect to having the world define you. Someone would say, hey, that stuff sounds interesting. And you would say, yeah, that sounds interesting. Another person would say it 2 seconds later and you would say it because there's no foundation. And so self-awareness, super key, especially because if you're going to be a courageous leader, a lot of times you're going to be the first one. You're not going to be, you're going to have to, the consensus is not what you're going to be necessarily something that you're going to be intimate with. You're going to be a lot of in fact, you'd be molder of consensus, as our MLK Jr. used to say. Emotional intelligence is important because it also not only informs you about yourself, but it also helps you interact and communicate with other people, right? It's one of those things that you're able to recognize emotions. If you have emotional intelligence, you recognize your reactions to certain things. You recognize your other people's reactions to your words, and you're able to switch in between. Another reason why emotional intelligence is key is because it also is it's necessary. It's a gateway to a balanced life, right? So you think about your physical health, the ability to take care of your bodies, and you understand your stress points. It allows you to manage stress and maintain good health, because when you're emotionally intelligent, you know your emotions so well, and you also know what will cause negative emotions. So you're like, okay, I've got to do this to get there. Your mental well-being, so it affects your attitudes and your outlook of life. So these are things that can help alleviate your anxiety, depression, mood swings, and you can, gear your actions towards more positive attitudes and happier outlook. Relationships we discussed, you better understand and manage emotions. You're better able to communicate your feelings in a more constructive way. So you and I could disagree. And I'm trying to slow down because I think I hear an echo. But but you and I could disagree, and I could communicate my message better in a way where I understand the needs, feelings, and responses, and I'm not attacking the person, but I'm also saying I hear you, and here's my point of view. This is why I think that way, and it's bad. And then last thing I can think of for emotional intelligence is that it's conflict resolution. This is when we can discern people's emotions and empathize with the perspective. So it's much easier to resolve conflicts or possibly avoid them before they start, because you're better at negotiation. And so due to the nature of actually understanding the needs and desires of others, it's easier to give people what they want. So it's a lot of practice and the reason why, I still think I have a long way to go, and I love how highly you think of me in this regard, but I needed to do this type of things because when you grow up in 5 countries or 4 continents by the time you're 17, it's not only when you try to figure out how to sort of communicate, get your message across, and someone like me who is very passionate, a lot of times initially I was like, and then I was like, and then I was like just too timid. So I was like the two extremes. I went from being too loud to being shy. Like, no, I got to figure out how to say it to this person, to that person. And so it's very important, and it's important in today's climate. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to hear even more reasons why with the I'm hearing echo too. Sorry. Let me turn it off. Let me turn it down. Hopefully y'all aren't hearing an echo. If you are hearing an echo, I apologize. Okay.
I'm not. Yeah, not at all.
So given the intensity of the current social political landscape and all that's going on, and the fact that we all have blind spots, a big big bulk of the Spark Leadership Program is around uncovering our blind spots so we can transform our teams and transform our leadership, because blind spots to me are another language. It's another version of kind of uncovering emotional intelligence terrain, right? And figuring out like, where are we awake? What parts of our leadership are we awake to, and what parts of our leadership are we asleep to? You know, we don't. It's kind of bringing the unconscious conscious, right?
Yes.
And so, if you had to say kind of some of the, and this is now I'm just going off the cuff because I'm like, I really am genuinely curious what you're thinking about this. What you think about this? So because we do such similar work, working with cross-cultural communication, working with folks who are where there's cross-cultural tension, or there's just a need to strengthen the dynamic of a group that's diverse, what would you say kind of the biggest pitfalls are when it comes to leaders either not tending to their blind spots, or some of the best practices that you've seen out there, where you see leaders who are really taking intentional effort to be in communities that are kind of pushing them to grow and learn and be the best leader they can be, with the most consciousness of their of all of their layers of their identity, from gender to race to sexuality to body type to generation, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all starts from a point of humility, and humility to accept that we can be wrong. I think a lot of times people are always afraid that if you say the word bias, it means they're sexist or racist, and that's a thing that we need to get rid of, because everybody has bias. Because this is something that's gone down from generations to the beginning of time, where you needed to know whether an animal was going to hurt you, and your bias was fight, flight, or fright. What would you do in those situations?
Yeah.
But if anyone is truly intentional about understanding a different perspective, that self-awareness piece is necessary, but your blind spots have to be uncovered. There are moments when I've taken these tests, or I've had people point out things to me like, hey, when you said that, that made me feel very small. And to me, those are statements I might have made before, right? These are statements I might have made before, but I didn't think anything of it because it was such no one said anything about it. And it became such a habit of mine that when someone pointed out to me, I was like, what do you mean? I'm not that. And so the humility in that piece becomes, okay, you might think you're not that, but you have to understand the power of those words. And you have to be able to address that and say, I'm sorry that those words, what I said affected you. I will do my job. I'll do my best. And I want to follow up with you to make sure that I'm still doing this, to make sure that you don't feel inferior based on what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you need, and not only is that humility, inform you to start to accept that you wronged someone if they tell you that, but you should also tap into curiosity as well and ask questions. So like, okay, so what is the best way? Like, what are the alternative words, or what are the alternative methods? What other things might I have done in the past that have done that? And I find that if more people start to do that, you start to see, you start to get better at figuring out how to communicate. Because a lot of times the reason why there's a lot of cross-cultural conflict is because people don't feel seen, heard, or understood. So if you don't feel seen, heard, or understood, and you're not asking why people don't feel seen, heard, or understood, you're not getting to the root of the issue, because you can see a reaction based on what you said, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. But you have to understand why, and you have to know why that matters, because then you can become someone that tells that to another person when you hear that. And it's so I think having that humility to everyone to accept that they have bias, but also having the curiosity to ask people and say, what are things that, or in my behavior or my colleagues, or things that I've done that have made you feel less than, and how can I be better? I think if we can become more, ask those type of questions, we'll do a lot more. Because a lot of people react to bias with shame, guilt, and fear, right? It's like, you're shaming me, it's guilty, I'm gonna walk in eggshells, and I'm just afraid, right? And I don't want that to be the case. These are some of the fears I have when I see people going about it in interesting ways. But we have to move away from shame, fear, and guilt, and go to humility and curiosity, for sure.
Yes. So many powerful points there, and I thank you for that, because it is to be curious is, I think these days, to be curious rather than certain about someone's experience takes a tremendous amount of courage, because you're operating with we've all been conditioned with bias. Like, we're operating with these understandings of how people should or be or do or whatever the case may be. And to check an assumption and to say, hold on, is that what's the story I'm telling myself right now about this particular moment? Can I be curious rather than like make this assumption about this person's lived experience? Could this be an opportunity for me to learn and grow? Even though it's probably not comfortable to be wrong,
Yeah.
but it's the way that allows us to grow and learn.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I first came here, no one ever believes I'm Nigerian. But when I finally got some people to believe I'm Nigerian, they used to ask me a bunch of questions that initially they didn't fear me. I'll be honest, dude. Like, do you live in a hut? There's a Lion King grill. Do you talk like this? But, even as ignorant as those questions may seem, I got to the point where I actually appreciate those questions more, because I'm like, I'm going to give you an education opportunity here. And
yeah.
I say that to say that sometimes your questions might appear ignorant, might appear dumb or stupid to the other person, but it's better to get that answer instead of you perpetuate that. And that you're right is courage. The courage to be wrong and the courage to be perceived as that. Because what's more dangerous is if you start, perpetuating these falsehoods and people start believing you, and then it's a whole different thing. Because bias, the way people see a whole bunch, like if someone did that with my continent, for example, and they went to tell their kids that, and it's somehow taught in the curriculum, that's a whole generation of people growing up thinking that Africa is a bunch of subhumans, right? Or no one recognizing that there's so many appreciation for Africans. Like, I've looked at the curriculum a lot of times in school, and a lot of the first and the things like that, I'm like, that's not true. There should be more here. You should flesh out that more. And that's where all these biases are formed. So with bias, I always like to talk on the individual level, but I also want us to look at the institutional level, because there are so many things that they just go unchecked. And we don't know what our kids are being taught in the curriculum. We don't know what policies are being set in the offices, and these things. There are a lot of times the unwritten rules rule over the written rules. Like, it's just standard practice. And so if we can get to that point, I think we'll have a better chance of moving away from dangerous biases.
Yes. Thank you for bringing up the systemic, because there's systems, there's institutions, and there's individuals, and people are so quick to go to the individual. But I always say, I facilitate conversations about systemic oppression and the systems that we've inherited. Like, we are swimming in this water that we don't even know we're in the ocean. We're in it. We're so deeply in these systems that are either intentionally by design from the beginning, they've marginalized or position people further from opportunity. And if you don't have that schema, if you don't have that understanding, and you've only been told to trust the system, and everyone around you is saying the textbook is right, or that, trust the system, trust school, don't question it, then we get into these conflicts. And I appreciate you so much for saying the piece about like how much strength, again, back to like, you chose to stay at the table and say, you know what, this you're trying to communicate with me. This may be triggering for me that you said this, that, and the other about Lion King or whatever. And to what I call that is like, it's an olive branch, it's someone trying to say, this is all that I got. Like, let me just give you what I got, because I'm trying to connect, and this is the only thing that I can access in my schema right now,
Yeah, absolutely. It takes courage on both sides. I'm glad you brought that up. It's courage on the white side, courage on the black side, courage on the Hispanic side, courage on everyone. There's a lot of courage, and some level of humility has to come into play. And that's where we all get hung up, right? It's our pride and all that. And it's I understand it, by the way. I mean, if you've lived in a place where people have constantly ridiculed your culture, it's definitely not an easy place to come. And then if you're come from a place of privilege, and I guess you've been told certain things, and you feel like you tried once and then you got bitten off. It's like, there has to be courage to continue, because we all have to be able to see the bigger picture. And that's what I loved about Nelson Mandela. That's why he's my favorite leader. Just because that the apartheid system was one that I studied as someone that lived in a military dictatorship. And he was initially militant, And then, he went to jail, he studied, did a bunch of stuff, but he came back and he wanted to be, reconciliatory and wanted to see some bigger pictures. And I think that takes a lot of self-work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Whew, yeah, so much goodness. And speaking of self-work, I think there's a lot for people to think about and chew on and marinate over tonight, and to really think about like what now, given all that you've heard today and reflected on, what feels like is yours to do, what feels like the best next step. And so with that, I'll just offer, is there anything else you feel called to share with the Spark community?
So yeah, I mean, I took down a few notes. So I said, so some qualities that I've noticed, if you want to be like a true transformative leader, one, you need to work on continuous learning, right? So you need to stay in a state where you're constantly mastering skills that you want to, maybe in your field. For like me and you, it's probably, putting ourselves in different environments and tapping into our curiosity to make sure we stay in a place where we are learning and getting different perspectives. That feeds us. So whatever it is in your field, what are the core skills you need to learn, and then engineer your environment so that you're constantly listening to podcasts, audiobooks, or reading books around that, because that's going to inform you, and make sure it's from different perspectives. Self-confidence is something that can be built. So if you think about, us as humans, it's the courage to be confident in your beliefs. So what is something you can stand up for? And how can you courageously show up for that belief that you have every day? And even if it's a small thing that you do every day, just continuously do that. You can start off with donating, supporting, volunteering, and then you graduate from there. But show up and practice self-confidence in your belief every day. The other thing is embrace collaboration. No one becomes great in the bubble. So you got to tap into teams, and that's how you build reactions, you build chain reactions rather, and that's how you get people to continue to buy into your mission. Develop your passion, whatever it is you're passionate about. This goes in with the stay in a state of continuous learning, but it's a never-ending desire, right? If it's truly a passion, it's a never-ending desire. So for someone like me who wants to connect with with 3 billion people, something that, I've learned. So I speak French and working in Spanish. I know Rachel knows that. And the things that those small things that I can do so I can develop that passion to actually be able to connect and then persevere. That's the last thing. There will be inevitably hard roads ahead, particularly with the chance that this group has chosen to take. You've chosen to show up for people. You've chosen to be extremely valuable leaders for people that are voiceless. A lot of times people wouldn't see your vision at first. They wouldn't recognize your vision. They might mock you, shun you, yell at you, ridicule you. But if you've done the work with developing your passion, with working on your self-confidence, you'll be able to rise through. But you have to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and persevere. So yeah, that's what I feel called to share.
Drop the mic, sir. Thank you. So many really great reminders. And I love ending on perseverance, because there is change and conflict are inevitable, and they're going to push us on purpose. And so thank you for that. I think so many things for people to really think about, and starting small, starting with that one thing that you talked about, that just practice that one thing that you feel confident in, a belief that you feel really confident about, and take one action step a day. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for bringing me here. Love the community you've created. So it's an honor.
Thank you. So much love and so much appreciation. And if folks want to follow you and stay connected, where could they find you?
So I'm at Tayo Rockson everywhere on social. Tayo Rockson. I believe you had Amanda. We both have a group called Next Gen Thought Leaders. You can join us there. And podcast is called AsTold By Nomads. Comes out weekly. But TayoRockson.com. If you search, that's my digital home. Everything of mine is over there. So
yeah, cool. Y'all should definitely check out his podcast. It's fantastic, and everything. Just what I appreciate. Everybody I chose to be here for a reason, and our theme is dare to be brave. and elevate others with integrity. And you do that, sir, with so much.
Thank
Just
you.
I can't
Thank you.
even tell you enough. So thank you for embodying what it means to be a
Yeah.
courageous leader.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for watching. Thank you all for
Yeah.
participating. Really love it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, everybody. And for the team replay, let us know what you think and we'll be in touch. And for everybody here live, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the night. Thank you again, Tayo. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.